In a world of EMS podcasts, EMS Office Hours is the only live podcast for EMTs and paramedics, transmitting the latest EMS news, trends, and topics. Turn down your scanners and turn up your speakers to join Jim Hoffman, Josh Knapp, and Dave Brenner in their latest podcasting journey.
From the data that you've learned, but a lot of places that are data-driven, they don't really drive data or use it or analyze it. And if we're doing, what's that phrase, evidence-based medicine, then we should also be doing evidence-based or data-driven responses or protocols and stuff like that.
Yeah. I find a lot of times that when it's something regarding protocols, when they start to do big in-servicing on a protocol, something like that, is when one crew makes a mistake and there's like a negative outcome to a patient, or some doctor in a hospital complains that something wasn't done right. And that's when you start seeing, CMEs that are focused on a particular protocol or something like that.
Yep.
It's like the one crew that makes a mistake, everybody else has to get kind of thrown into the
penalized with it,
the dummy pile, and since we're talking about it, the topic I had sent to you was about focusing CMEs and continuing education and stuff based on an agency's weak points. And when I say weak points, I mean when they look at their calls, and a lot of agencies now do QA/QI, but they're doing almost like 100% of it. They look at every chart, they look at every call, and I don't see why it would be so hard for them to say, okay, well, we've got this pool of people here that seem to be struggling with, let's say, identifying STEMIs, right? Or not getting the 12 lead on fast enough, or something like that. And then we have another group of people here that are spending too much time on trauma calls with high risk patients. We need to figure out how to deal with this group of people that seem to be struggling with that. And then instead of putting everybody into the, hey, we all got to get off trauma scenes fast enough, and sort of not focusing on the folks that are just seem to be struggling with that element of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And instead of doing that, it's like, okay, we're going to have a CME this month on, identifying a STEMI and the importance of getting the 12 lead done within a certain time frame. Meanwhile, you've got, let's say, 70% or 80% of your staff that are doing it just fine, that have no issues. That, a reminder of that and a refresher of that, of course, is always good. But I think, maybe for targeted CE to get that, that training to people that might be struggling or overlooking it or whatever, is not as well served for the group of people that are doing it fine, and maybe that their CME for that month could be more targeted towards something else.
Well, that's, if you're doing it agency-wide like that, I can see that. But one of the things that it kind of brings me back to when I first saw the topic that you wanted to talk about, this was one of the reasons that I used to like going and sitting in a physical refresher class, recertification class, versus the go to a class here, go to a conference there, get these CDs and try and all add them up. Because the refresher class, or the style of refresher class that I went to, was a challenge refresher.
Yeah.
So with that challenge refresher, for people who may not have it in their area, so that they understand it, the first night of the class, all the medics that are there take, whether it's 100, 150, 200 question exam, however that particular institution decides to challenge each of the areas, and it goes over the major points. So if I'm weak in, say, OBGYN, but I test out of everything else, the only class that I have to really attend, other than the standard exam and practical, would be the OBGYN lectures. So that's identifying my weaknesses, and then it's addressing my weaknesses and allowing me to improve in those areas.
Yeah.
And I'm not being penalized and showing up for operations or cardiology, which, like you were saying, I get my 12 lead on, I do this, I do that.
Yeah.
So if there was a style of challenge, because I've just recently finished going through the CME based recertification, and I was sitting and just going, let me silence this. I was just going through a bunch of videos for subjects that I was bored out of my mind, and it was mind numbing because it's going over stuff and I'm not learning anything. The last count that I did, I've probably gone through about 12 recertifications. So I'm like I advertised on LinkedIn back in September, I finished my 36th year. I'm starting my 37th year. So I've got 36 years of EMS experience behind me. I would certainly hope at this point that I know certain things. And then to keep giving me the same things over and over is rough, because
it's almost insulting.
yeah, the exam that once you take that state exam, the state exam that you're taking is the exact same identical state exam that your entry level EMT or entry level paramedic is going to take.
Right.
So the novice who just came out of high school, or may even be in high school, because another topic is, should we lower the age to 17 or 16 for EMTs and CFRs and all that, EMRs, everything else that there's going on. But so that 17-year-old high school kid who's never done anything is taking the same exact EMT exam as somebody who's got 20 and 30 years.
Yeah.
Are you challenging that? Are you providing any continuing medical education so that EMT who's now got 20 and 30 years is continuing their evolution, becoming a better practitioner? Or are you doing that old thing of, I've got 1 year of experience 20 times? You're doing that same refresher over and over and over.
Yeah.
Teaching them anything new. You're not challenging them. Back when I used to take the challenge refresher exams, I would attend CMEs, and this was before Zoom and everything else, because they were given by doctors, they were given by specialists, and they were on a subject that was new, that was cutting edge. However, they counted towards my renewal. But if we're doing the old stuff over and over and over, are you really getting better? Are we making stronger? Are we getting that QA/QI? So one of the things that when you were talking that kind of came up was, there was a discussion recently that I was looking at, is what kind of lessons can we learn from the Formula One circuit, where they use pit crews.
Mm-hmm.
Pit crews identify what different positions do, and or they keep practicing putting a tire on and off until they can't get it wrong, until they can't do it any better.
Mm-hmm.
So that each time that the driver pulls into the pit, nothing is said, but everything is taken care of, and it's taken care of efficiently. And that type of logic, they're looking at how to improve CPR from our standards. And when you're looking at the different numbers, whether it's our response time, our time to putting the leads on, our time to putting the pads on, our time to giving the medication. So it's all these different things where it comes up, and are we looking and identifying this, and are we using our resources? And by that, I mean, when you were saying before that 70 or 80% of the people put the leads on in time and they shouldn't be penalized, are we using that 70 or 80% of our people that are getting it right? Are we using them to mentor, to coach and train the ones that aren't getting it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I tell you, it's funny. In a lot of ways, like you said, I mean, I always tell people, you know, a lot of people, they go online, they do the online CMEs and the CDCE programs that are online to meet the requirements to recertify with National Registry or with their state or whatever. A lot of those courses are usually the basic overview. They meet the requirements and stuff like that. Some of them are more original and do have more, like you said, more unique content, some new takes on things. And I always encourage people that, a lot of times we do have to review the stuff that we've been through a lot, right? It is important to review. It is important to kind of refresh on things. And I know a lot of people, they'll take, let's say, a stroke class. It might be the 10th or 12th time that they've taken it, but maybe on this 10th time, this 12th time, there's an instructor that's doing that hasn't taught it the way you've been, taught it before. And there could be one or two nuggets that you hear during that presentation that either is something new in the field or a new treatment or a new thought process on it that might, give you a good takeaway for that hour. So maybe you're there for the hour training, but there's 5 or 10 minutes that you can leave with that you can go ahead and take with you. So while you might not necessarily need that training, and you like you said, you know things after a certain period of time, that it's hard to show you anything new. Sometimes the reviewing is important to do, but like I said, it shouldn't be a constant thing. And it's funny you talk about the challenge refresher. I was doing the CME base refresher for a while. And then one time I said, you know what? I'm just going to challenge it this time because I feel like I really need to put my butt in a class and kind of, do the whole official refresher type program.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think there was like three sessions I had to go to because I didn't score as high as I thought I would have on the exam. That was just after being a medic for maybe 17 years at that point. So there's always, weaknesses in what you do. And I tell people you have to keep on reviewing and keep on learning, new stuff and reviewing the old stuff that you don't get complacent. And then when you sit for an exam, you're not starting to have to study the book from scratch, right? Because you've already been reviewing for a while. So I think that the combination of focusing on people's weak points, and I think agencies can identify that because of the QA that they do, because of the supervision that they have. A lot of places are very heavy on the management and supervisory level, and I think that administratively they can figure out who is weak in areas and who needs a little bump in knowledge in certain areas, and then the people that don't, have them spend their time in areas that they're weak in. I know this is a time consuming thing. It's a financial thing for agencies to do. But we keep talking about, how we want to make EMS so great, and we want more money, and we want recognition, and we want this, and we want that. But if you're not going to put the time in, to make the people inside EMS better, to warrant all that, you can't just say, well, I have a degree and I want more money. Well, you want to be able to say, you've done this training and you keep on training, you keep on improving your knowledge, and you keep on building your knowledge base. I have to call it moving the knowledge needle, just a little bit all the time. And over time, it adds up, So, like I said, it's two-sided for me where, we need to focus on the people that are weak in areas and focus CE on that, but also remind people that they do need to review occasionally so they can get those little nuggets out and maybe ring a bell of something that they might have forgot about during that session.
Well, that's why we refresh, and we do have to go over stuff just to make sure that we're not missing points. But when it comes to the agency, it shouldn't be the slide deck that they use from the original program if they're also a sponsor agency that does original courses.
Yeah.
It should be tailoring the slide deck to your data. And these days,
and also too, Mike, not to interrupt you, but also tailor to the audience, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you've got the people that are the what I've been trying to say is the EMT what are the EMT JG junior grade, versus the one that's been doing the EMT has been doing it for 10 years, or the paramedics have been doing it for 10 years, kind of tailoring some of that to those people when you are presenting that information.
Yeah, you're spot on, because I know some EMTs that over 10, 15, 20, 30 years, they can probably teach some of the modules of a medic refresher. And if you did not announce them as an EMT to some of these medics, or they did not know them, they wouldn't know the difference, because these are EMTs have gone with what I always talk about, mindset and a growth mindset. They're open to learning. They're opening themselves up to 1% better each day. They're challenging themselves. They're seeking out new information. They're open to feedback. They're not shutting down. I think one of the problems that we have with growth is the mindset of the people attending. You got the people that it's the weekly thing or it's the monthly thing, and I don't want to be here. I'm getting paid, but I don't want to be. When you shut yourself down like that and you put that wall in front of you, nothing is going to penetrate and come in and to teach you. So, like you said, I always used to attend CMEs. I had one student when I was sitting in a particular class. He goes, "Why are you here?" He goes, "You could be teaching this." I said, "Yes, you're correct. I could be. But I'm here to see either as an instructor, what kind of PowerPoint presentation or videos are they using that I could use that might present material a little better, make my job easier?
Sure.
Or, you know what? Maybe this person says something like you said, that 2 or 3 minutes that I soak up and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah.
And something new.
And you want to share
Me.
it. You want to share that information. Like you say, you want to mentor people. You want to share that information that you learned that other people that might not have been taking that class or been able to take it or didn't want to take it, that you can share that little piece of information with them.
Exactly. So, with growing and going on, like I said, to me, the challenge in combination with individuals, they should be doing a challenge refresher and an exam and doing that on their own. But then as an agency, the agency should be taking that portion of the data-driven material and presenting it. And part of that comes out of the culture that the administration is creating in your agency. Do you have a just culture where you create and foster an environment that people aren't afraid to say, "Hey, I had a near miss," or "I did screw up"?
Yeah.
And they're able to take the near misses and or the screw ups and look at, was it a provider error or was it a system error?
Yeah.
Is our system ordering medications like Benadryl, Thiamine, and dexamethasone, and they all come in the same vial?
Mm-hmm.
And are we taking that vial and then maybe somehow identifying it so it differentiates, so we don't have that near miss or we don't have that medication error? What are we able to get that information because we're saying, okay, yes, it was a shame, you made a mistake, we understand why, but we're contributing to it as far as we've been ordering these kind of medications or we've been packaging it in our bags or boxes this way. Let's change this. What can we do as a system? What can we do maybe as a process? When we talk about the 5 rights of checking your medication before you administer it, are we following the process? Because the reason there's a process is to avoid these errors and problems. And we need to have leadership that ingrains into their people to trust the process. Mm-hmm. You don't want to shortcut around it because it's 3 a.m. Well, it's in place because it is 3 a.m. so that you don't make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's not that you are doing an extra step. It's a step that's there to protect you, protect your patient, and make sure that everyone's doing the right thing. So that goes into the education system as well, is instead of teaching about your cardiac, your 12 lead and stuff like that, let's take these QA numbers and discuss instances of where we had problems. So call review, and if you do refreshers based on possibly like case studies where you're doing the call review, I think they're a lot more effective because you're identifying the problems that you have, you're identifying the weaknesses you have, and you're able to address them. And then maybe in this environment, when you have your 20 of your 25 staff members there, you can brainstorm something that the people are going to be able to get a better answer than you sitting in your office looking at this number and saying, well, okay, if they're putting on EKG leads at 10 minutes and we want them to be on at 7 minutes, then all we're going to do is we're going to keep hammering them until they're on at 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, instead of doing that, let's talk to the guys that are getting it on in 4 or 5 minutes and saying, hey, how are you approaching the call? What are you doing? Okay, that's a great process. This is our new process, our new SOP based on these suggestions and best practices. So let's see what we can do from that and then review it in another 3 or 4 months. But QA, QI, and education go hand in hand.